I'm not wasting these gold moments on 60 Minutes.
Oh, wow, Rob, what a treat and a joy to be talking to you.
Is that a Ben, Rob and Robbo exclusive?
I'm liking your new digs. This is flashier than any studio that I've ever worked in.
I want to come on this show all the time because no other show would ever set me up with that much room for danger.
Rob and Robbo. Streaming across the globe, Ben Norris, Rob McKnight, and David Robinson.
Ben, Rob and Robbo. News, entertainment, it's the Ben, Rob and Robbo. Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. Ben, Rob and Robbo Show.
Welcome to the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. Here's Rob McKnight.
Hello and welcome to the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. It is great to have your company on this Tuesday as we bring you hot button issues. Sam Dastyari is going to be talking about that bombshell 60 Minutes report. And Sophie Monk is joining us. She was revealed on The Masked Singer last night, but we can't talk hot topics without these two fine gentlemen. It's David Robinson and Benjamin Norris. Robbo, how are you going today?
Oh, I'm really excited about what we've got coming up on the show. It's going to be massive, Rob. This is the stuff that headlines are made of, and we will deliver that today.
Oh, I like that. And good to see you took Reggie's advice and had a shave.
Well, kind of shaving. I'm not going to get rid of it all. Look, I really like it. It's good for my very little self-esteem. So I'd like to just keep a little bit of a shadow, a suggestion of masculinity.
Oh, didn't mean to laugh like that.
I appreciate it.
That's one way to put it.
You have so little masculinity, and then I have less than you. So,
yeah. And now to our friend here.
I don't even know where that
when
leads
Ben is
now.
the butchest one in the group, you know you're in trouble.
Oh, it's a worry.
Hey guys, I've never even pretended to be camp, and I also am just very jealous that Robbo can grow facial hair. You know, when I got to my 40th birthday, I was hoping that I'd go through puberty. It never happened, and now I'm just jealous of people that can grow beards.
But you do have some kind of interesting kind of adolescent mo happening, do you? Like kind of like
I can't get rid of that.
Oh,
It's
right.
a nod to my love of Mexican food. Basically, no matter how
I
much
thought you were about to
shave,
say it's a nod to
I
your mother.
always-
Yes, I really thought that too. I really did think you were about to say that.
Look, when my mum got Cleo magazine, she learned how to get rid of that mustache, all right? Come on.
Sure.
Well,
Sorry,
we're off to a
Ben.
cracking start. All right, we've got so much to discuss today. But first of all, as we like to do in these times, we'll bring you up to speed with the very latest on the COVID-19 situation. And nationally, there are 4,204 active cases. 659 of those are currently in hospital. There are 148 new cases in Victoria. Unfortunately, a further 8 people have passed away, but that number is down from yesterday's 15. Thankfully, it's the lowest daily death toll since August 15. New South Wales has recorded 3 new cases for the second day in a row. An infected security guard stationed at a hotel in Sydney has been fined $2,000 for failing to self-isolate while he waited for his results. And in good news, the rest of the country has now recorded no new cases in the last 24 hours. Coming up, we'll bring you the scary news that already the virus is mutating and what that means for our immune system. Plus, why was Peter Foster's dramatic arrest too heavy-handed? We'll have our thoughts very soon. But first of all, let's go to Victoria, where Victoria's embattled Premier Dan Andrews is again under fire for his policy surrounding the coronavirus. On Monday, he announced he wants to extend the state of emergency by another 12 months. This was met with considerable anger and anguish. The Dictator Dan nickname was front and centre once again. Former Premier Jeff Kennett didn't hold back on his thoughts.
We're going to have to manage this virus. The Premier said today he might keep a state of emergency in place until we have a vaccine. We may never have a vaccine. This is an act of a megalomaniac. This is absolutely diabolical because of the message it sends out.
Yeah, it's good to see Jeff paid a visit from the 70s and gave us his views that are firmly from the 70s.
I did notice that collar.
What are you,
the first thing I
what are you guys
noticed.
talking about? Oh, I thought it was the trailer to Tales of the Crypt. I was like, oh, I didn't know Jeff Dennett was dead, nor did I know he's been brought back from the dead. But, you know, that's amazing. That's some serious witchcraft.
We've had a go at his outfits, but realistically, the reason I am is because I just think this is laughable. I really feel like opposition parties know. Here's the thing about politics, and I'm sure Sam Dastyari could talk to this a little bit later. Basically, when we are in wartime or during something like a pandemic, the voters will traditionally follow the leader of the day. So when an election comes, it's unlikely for the people in charge to be voted out because the electorate doesn't like change. They like stability during times of crisis. So there's no doubt the Victorian opposition is very worried about Dan Andrews going to the next election and winning. That it scares the bejesus out of them. There is no united front. The idea that they're not playing politics here, Robbo, is just complete BS. If the Liberal Party was in government, they would be doing the exact same thing on this because the government needs to have the power to stop people just going out and disobeying restrictions.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Rob, and I know that you're not a big fan of politicising the issue, but at some point, wouldn't it be nice, though, to be constructive possibly with past leaders? Now, just because he's a past leader, just because he's from another political party, doesn't mean that, you know, some of his ideas and, you know, some of his thoughts aren't worthwhile listening to. And just because he is from the past and is from another political party,
he's calling the Premier a megalomaniac. That's not ideas. That's just this BS political name-calling that we get time and time again.
But that's his idea again. But it's also starting to reflect in the electorate, though. The electorate is starting to go... Well, so when Dan Andrews started saying about this 12-month extension, now normally, you know, it cannot go longer than 6 months. And other parties like the Greens have said, well, why can't you do 3 or 6 months? Why does it have to be 12 months long? So he is echoing a little bit of the message that's coming out of the electorate about what's happening. I don't see it as a bad thing that he's doing this because we do need to hold our politicians to, you know, to task on things like this. However, this worries me, though, Rob. At what point, though, and I ask both Ben and yourself, at what point do we not let the coronavirus? We've got to live with it, don't we? We've got to. You can't keep shutting down economies. You can't keep people locked up. You just can't.
Robbo,
that's not
you're an anti-masker. You've been unmasked like in an episode of Scooby-Doo. I had no idea.
I'm not an anti-masker. I'm just saying. I'm not an anti-masker. I'm just saying. Is it sustainable, Rob? Come on. Is it sustainable to keep locking things out? The federal government doesn't think so. The federal government keeps pushing for all states to lift their border closures, for all states to lift their restrictions.
Look, the fact
do we need to start asking the tough questions?
If we accept that, people will die. So that's an ethical choice we have to make. People will die if we go down this path. The herd immunity hasn't exactly worked in Sweden. We talked about Sweden a few weeks ago where they have not had any social distancing. They've gone on with life as normal. People have died, but they haven't taken the big hit to their economy. And they're hoping for herd immunity. But herd immunity, I think, is something like, I want to say 0.04%, and I'm just pulling that one out. I just seem to remember us talking about that when they need to get to a herd immunity of 0.8% for it to be declared a success, is my vague understanding. Please Google that yourself and make sure the facts are right before you quote them at the next dinner table.
Yes. Rob, we've lost 529 people from coronavirus. That's the fact. But how many have we lost to suicide? How much more domestic violence is there? How much more social and financial anxiety is there? I think it might be time, maybe not now, but in the near future, this is my opinion, that we start actually taking into account all of the numbers, not just those COVID numbers. Now, those COVID numbers are tragic. I will not take away from that. And there has been massive failures by government, especially in aged care. But there are bigger numbers here. People are dying as well because of this pandemic that isn't directly related to having COVID-19. I know I'm opening up a big box here, but
here's the difference, Robbo, between you and Jeff Kennett. You have articulated something that is controversial, but you've done it in a way that is making me pause for thought. The way Jeff Kennett spoke on the Chris Kenny program, it was just the political BS where we see a politician from one side of politics demeaning and belittling another side of politics because they don't agree with them. If Jeff Kennett had come out and said what you said in a civilised manner, and this is the guy who was chairman of Beyond Blue, and yet he thinks it's okay to call people megalomaniacs. I've never understood that with him, but that's a whole other issue.
That's a good point. Really good point.
I think the issue here is that we've got two things. One, coronavirus cases are going down. The death toll is going down. So you have to say what Dan Andrews is doing in Victoria is correct. Yes, we can go back to the hotel situation and say there was a complete stuff up. Everyone's accepting that, but this is where we are. But when we look at how those cases were rising, if we hadn't gone to stage 4 in Melbourne, those cases would have kept rising, and at least they're coming back down. Ben, you are the Melburnian here. You've said on this program that you feel Dan Andrews is doing a good job, but is the tide turning against him and his government?
I think the tide definitely is turning, and then I think that is a little disappointing. I think, Rob, you just made some really clear you just highlighted some clear facts in my mind, and that is that we know from different countries around the world who waited for herd immunity and didn't react fast enough, that the death toll was catastrophic. Like, our numbers in Victoria are high, but they're certainly not as high as they would have been. I mean, I think I just have to say, when it comes to Jeff Kennett, that's on brand for him. He has always been a man who speaks in very short sentences, trying to get a rise out of his audience. And I think he has got a rise out of his audience. And I do appreciate different opinions. And I think we should listen to all people, no matter how batshit crazy they are. So for Jeff Kennett, bring it on. You know, it's food for thought. Well done. Good-o. Thanks for coming. But we have to still remind ourselves that Daniel Andrews is in a really difficult position. He's had to make some really difficult decisions. They're hard lines at hard times. And I think we should continue to support him. I mean, it's almost like going to the footy and saying you're barracking for Hawthorn, and then halfway through the game, you think, oh, no, they're not doing so great. I think I'm going to go and barrack for Essendon. Now, I don't necessarily think that's good sportsmanship, and I'm probably talking in sports metaphors now, and I probably shouldn't be when we're talking about COVID-19.
I was about to warn you, you're heading down a dodgy path with us three.
But we have to be more simple. I mean, I don't understand it, Robbo. You've really taken a turn with this overnight, because if we go back and look at over 70 episodes of this show, you've changed your tune. What happened?
You learn, things change, new information is brought up to you, new arguments are brought up to you, information changes, you do more research. I think over 70 episodes, if I wasn't changing my opinion or being open to different opinions, then I shouldn't be here.
Absolutely.
No, you're entitled to this. Sorry, I don't feel like we should be interrupted at this point when we actually are just getting somewhere. But when it comes down to this, I understand that we can very easily look at certain things that are happening and go, oh, that's also a factor. Yes, that is also a factor. We need to step up. When it comes to mental health issues, we need to step up. We need to reach out to those people who may be suffering. This is unprecedented times. It is horrendous what is happening, but we cannot cut off our nose to spite our face at a time when someone is showing true leadership, sticking to their guns. And let me tell you, those numbers wouldn't be sitting in the just above the 100 if we had gone to an attempt of herd immunity while trying to protect the economy. Let's try and be as strict as we can. Let's get those numbers right down. And what I also want to clarify in the news at the moment is Dan Andrews has extended something by saying this is an extension of 12 months of an option. He's not saying that's what it's going to be. He's just extended that. And so while the fear-mongering has now overshadowed what he actually said, you've now found people saying, oh, but Dan Andrews is going to do this to us for 12 months. That isn't what he was saying. So, you need to be able to understand what is happening right across the field before all of a sudden you change the play on someone else.
Look, on that, Andrews did take to Twitter last night to defend his case. He wrote that extending the emergency allows the government to legally make the changes that health experts need. He also went on to say getting back to normal won't ever be an option if what's already achieved cannot be protected. So we understand why. I think, Robbo, to answer your earlier question, why 12 months? I think it comes down to the fact that he is basically just trying to ensure that they don't have to go through this process of playing politics, that they just have the ability to make decisions fast and react to what's going on.
I think you've got to be careful, though, especially with Australia, just with our kind of innate personalities of being Australians, is that we don't like being told what to do, but we will do what we're told to a certain extent. But I think it's just basic human nature that if you're doing the right thing and if these numbers continue to fall, which we hope that they do, you can't then have a 12-month state of emergency when numbers are low. It just doesn't work like that. You can't, you can't chastise a child and keep chastising them when they're doing the right thing, but keep saying, well, you've got to go to the naughty corner, you've got to stay in the naughty corner. But I've been doing the right thing, you've got to stay in the naughty. People don't work that way, and all you'll see is an explosion. So it needs to be this kind of really delicate balancing act. I'm not saying it's easy, I'm saying it's very hard.
I'm coming up with metaphors. I feel like all of a sudden I say one metaphor, and then you whipped out four in a sentence to suit your argument. Like, I don't understand, Robbo. Like, when it comes down to it... Isn't that what
we're supposed to do? Aren't we supposed to have arguments and opinions? I don't understand what you're attacking me on.
Look, I think I'm attacking you on making sure that you've gathered your facts correctly before you stand on this soapbox, because I would like to know the answers to a lot of things instead of just being explained in metaphors. Now, when I say to someone who's got a drinking problem...
What exactly do you want me to clarify? Because I bet I can clarify it for you.
Okay, well, I'd like for you to clarify why you think Dan Andrews is doing a bad job, because that's ultimately what you're alluding at.
I did not say he was doing a bad job. I even just said moments ago that it's a very difficult balancing act, that it's a very hard thing to do. I never said that he was doing a bad job. I just questioned about this kind of...
Yes, but then all of a sudden, David Robinson is now saying that there's a better way of being able to run Victoria, or a better way of being able to run the country. That is what you're alluding to. So that is the question I'd like to ask you. So, like, let's get down to it. I mean, you're the person who's saying, okay, you've highlighted mental health issues, which is obviously an issue. You've highlighted
not the first time
other
I've done
deaths,
that on this program.
Okay, but you've also highlighted that the numbers are quite low in regards to this as well. Yes, those numbers are low because the people in charge have kept them at that level. Now, look, there's a lot of people having a lot of opinions at the moment, but what I want to know from you is, have you changed your mind because of the numbers in mental health or domestic violence? I mean, are these the facts that have changed your mind as to why the government has kept a stage 4 lockdown in Victoria?
I didn't really say any of that, to be honest with you, Ben.
Okay.
Ben, I want to interject for a moment as the... I'm going to play judge and jury and executioner here for a moment. I'm not really sure what the issue is. Robbo's giving his opinions on the very complex topic we're talking about. I don't remember him actually saying Dan Andrews is doing a bad job. Robbo raised the question...
But that's what he's alluding to. When are we going to get the economy back? When are we going to get the economy back on track?
That's not saying someone's doing a bad job. He's now questioning at what point do we start thinking about the economy and the fact that people are committing suicide because of self-isolation. This is an issue not being talked about, and that's not criticism of Dan Andrews. That's a discussion on where do we need to go from here. You know, like, I would actually argue that Dan Andrews has just had success. He has quickly brought phase 2 down very quickly. Stage 4, in my mind, has been a success. The question is, where I don't want to speak for Robbo, but where I think Robbo's going is the fact is, okay, we've done that. Now, what about the economy? Now, what about people who are struggling with isolation? Do we just accept COVID-19 is going to be part of our lives? I think you've read way too much into it, mate.
Okay, well, I might have read way too much into that, but I just think, is this a knee-jerk reaction to the headlines in the media at the moment saying that Dan Andrews has an extension of 12 months? Is that what you were arguing about?
Well, the topic is that if people are doing the right thing and numbers are coming down and they remain down and deaths remain down, then you can't really expect an electorate or a population to then stay locked down because as a whole, human nature is we've done the right thing. We expect to be rewarded for it, i.e. rewarding would be to minimise or to back down from level 4 to level 3. That's all I'm saying. If he keeps the numbers down this way and continues to drop, I don't know that he's got a good argument for keeping Melbourne in a state of emergency, Victoria in a state of emergency and in stage 4 lockdown. I just don't know that you could argue to the electorate that you could do that. if the
I
numbers
don't think
remain low and
he's
people are
going to
doing the
keep
right
it.
thing.
I think we've got 3 weeks left here in Victoria, and I think he's going to reassess at that point.
The likelihood
And I think
is,
that
let's be
he's
honest,
just-
the likelihood is stage 4 will go beyond the 3 weeks. That is very, very likely because they won't want to see a third wave increasing in COVID-19 cases. Look, I want to move on because we have spent a lot of time talking about this, and there are other interesting issues to talk about. This is obviously the biggest issue we're facing in this country, but we absolutely should learn from each other. We should learn from the headlines, and we should evolve our opinions. Anyone who gets stuck in their one opinion doesn't evolve. And Ben, I know you've changed your mind on many subjects we've discussed here based upon the new evidence that you get. So I love the fact that we're all open to learning. All right. One of Australia's senior Catholic archbishops is the latest person to have issues with the potential COVID-19 vaccine. Anthony Fisher, the Archbishop of Sydney, as well as officials from Greek Orthodox and Anglican churches, have written a letter to Prime Minister Scott Morrison venting their concerns. Their worry is whether a vaccine would be ethical. Many vaccines use cells from electively aborted fetuses, and it appears that AstraZeneca, the company the Australian government has a letter of intent with, will utilise that material. However, in a confusing statement, Fisher also said it would not be unethical if no other alternative was available, but he is deeply troubled by it. Ben, what do you think? What's your personal belief when it comes to creating the vaccine? Look, it's obviously icky to use fetuses and things like that, but we are after a vaccine, right?
I think we are after a vaccine, and I think it is above my pay grade just a little bit once I get into how that is going to be made. I think AstraZeneca is trying to do the right thing to look into this. I'd like to probably see that information a little bit more clearer about what they're saying about those baby fetuses being a part of it. Like, I don't actually have that information in front of me, and maybe I haven't done my research. But look, I think we're looking for a vaccine. We don't have one yet.
The question is, Ben, at what point do we let religious beliefs hold us back from getting a vaccine?
Well, I don't think that sits in my... I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me, to be honest with you, when it comes to religion. I mean, religion's not necessarily a factor in my mind at this point.
Robbo, what about you?
But I guess religion is a massive thing to a lot of people. I think this is just classic religious hypocrisy and against science. Look, other vaccines, as you mentioned in your intro there, Rob, are made from the cells of elected aborted fetuses. Now, that is just, the thing. If you don't want the vaccine, then don't get it. But in this day and age, when our livelihoods have changed and, we're being locked down, I think it's... I think it borders on irresponsible for heads of churches to come out and say that that they're deeply troubled by it. However, and you even said this again, sorry to keep repeating your intro there, Rob, but it is... at the end, he then does that confusing statement of saying, oh, well, if there's nothing... It's not unethical if there's no other alternative. Well, what is it? We don't have the time to look through every single possibility. If there's a vaccine that's made for the global population, or the Australian population, then I think that's important that people identify whether they want to take it or not because it's unethical or things like that. It's classic hypocrisy of this thing. Another little fact for you, really quickly, was that the Vatican actually came out and said that vaccines were not unethical, and just because you took a vaccine that actually used cells from a aborted fetus doesn't mean that you support or condone abortions.
And
so
look, let's be honest,
the Vatican's already come out and said
beliefs
that.
have always played a part in scientific ethics. Like we don't clone. Cloning is outlawed because of the ethical concerns around creating life.
Well, there's a big argument as well. It's a long argument that basically if the church didn't have as much power in the Renaissance period and didn't stymie scientific exploration and experiments, then we might be even further ahead technically.
You mean we could have teleporters right now?
But it's a long ethical-based argument that it was because if you remember, when a lot of science had to happen in those really early, wonderful days. It had to happen in secret. If you were found out, the church, got you and prosecuted you and things like
Well,
that.
even the
That's another
dismembering
massive
of
argument.
bodies, to find out how
That's
our
right.
bodies worked always had to be done in secret because
That's right.
it wasn't allowed. Look, I want to move on because just a little note here. Reports out of Hong Kong are saying a man was reinfected with a different strain of COVID-19. His second infection came more than 4 months after his first. However, this time he displayed no symptoms. This has led doctors to believe his immune system, having already experienced the virus, was able to keep it at bay. There have been presumed reinfection cases in other parts of the world, but none have been confirmed with rigorous testing. I think that's quite fascinating. Let's move on to other topics of the day, and it was a dramatic arrest usually reserved for murderers and terrorists, but it was conman Peter Foster who was on the receiving end of a very rough takedown. Nine's Carl Stefanovic sets the scene.
You couldn't get a prettier morning in Port Douglas than last Thursday. But for notorious conman Peter Foster, it was a case of paradise 1 minute, purgatory the next. On 4 Mile Beach, 2 Queensland police officers dressed as joggers crash tackle Foster into the golden sand to arrest him on multiple fraud and money laundering charges. This arrest marks another sensational chapter in the life and crimes of 57-year-old Peter Clarence Foster, who has been doggedly pursued for the last decade by fraud investigator Ken Gamble.
The vision prompted many to ask why. Why was it necessary for such force considering his age and the location of the arrest? Some went as far as to suggest it was a made-for-TV arrest, especially considering the drone and 60 Minutes camera crew. Ben, he is a wanted criminal. There are reports that he had inquired about hiring a hitman to kill the man who ended up helping police to arrest him. But what do you think of this takedown? Was it fair? Is it the way it should be done? There is a presumption of innocence before, you're found guilty.
I think it's very clear, though, that this man seems like he has, he has committed a crime. I mean, they've been following this man for quite some time. I mean,
yeah, but
I thought it was
but even
really...
if he has committed a crime, did that kind of excessive force, was that warranted? He was literally walking. They could have gone up to him and said, mate, you're coming with us. And there's 2 big burly guys around him. Where's he going to run to? He's got no gun on him or anything like that. What is the worst thing that could happen here? Instead, they're crash tackling him to the ground. The drone shot from 60 Minutes is going. It really was just this was made for TV.
It does come across like a bit of a movie-making moment, but I would also say in that footage, no matter how old he is, he did certainly put up a pretty good fight.
I would too if I was tackled to the ground. If 2 guys just came and tackled me to the ground and I didn't know who they were, I'm not just going to lie there and cop it. I'm going to fight back.
I don't necessarily agree. I think that at the end of the day, this man is a criminal. They have done a lot of investigating to know that he is a criminal. I also do believe that
so he deserves
we need to
any punishment the arresting officers decide to dish out.
In this regard, I'm just going to say that from that footage, it did look like it was shot for a movie-making moment, and I understand that.
Well, some movies haven't been shot as well as that.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know why you're yelling at me, but anyway,
I would say... just excitable, Ben. I'm not yelling.
Okay, well, time to switch to decaf coffee. But I would also like to say it did definitely look like it was shot for a movie-making moment for television. I think that the idea of the drone being there to capture it with that 60 Minutes thing was a little bit outrageous. But I don't have any issue with those police officers dressing up as someone else and tackling him to the ground and arresting him. I really don't.
But why couldn't they just say, Peter Foster, you're under the arrest on these charges. Come with us now. And then if he tried to run, all bets are off. Tackle him all you want. Do whatever it takes to bring him down. But he didn't even have the chance to acknowledge who they were. They've tackled him. You can't say he resisted arrest because he resisted 2 thugs jumping on top of him.
I don't care. I think he's a criminal and he was arrested. I think the idea of it being shot for 60 minutes is a bit murky and that doesn't bode well with me. But at the end of the day, I don't have an issue with people being arrested when they basically are known to be convicted criminals. So that's how I feel.
But he hasn't been convicted.
I trust the police.
He hasn't been convicted on these charges. Yes, he has prior fault.
I'm not going down this line. Like we do this on the show all the time. We just keep playing footage of police doing this sort of stuff, and it just continues to add to this narrative that all police are bad. And I think there's a percentage
Hang on.
of police that are bad.
Whoa.
But
I take big issue with that, Ben,
yeah.
because on this very show, there have been so many times all of us have defended the police when somebody has come attacking the police and the police have retaliated. We have been sat here and said, no, fair call to the police. So you can't come and call us police bashers because that's just not right. We judge each and every case on its individual merits. And in this occasion, in my humble opinion, I just think it was an excessive use of force that wasn't required. They should have said to him, we are arresting you. And as I said, he's a big open space. These are two fit men. He's not exactly healthy. If he tries to run, take him down. But this just reeked of PR BS to me, Robbo.
But it seems like
yes,
that was... sorry, Robbo, it's your turn.
Look, we'd have to look into this, but some of that footage is actually by IFW, which is a private investigative firm who Kim Gamble works for and who was the one that took down Peter Foster. So, yes, there was definitely a 60 Minutes camera crew with a sounder and a cameraman. There was other vision in that report that was from IFW. Maybe the drone was from that too. I don't know.
I don't think so.
But it's, some of that vision was IFW, though, Rob. You can't deny that.
Sure, sorry.
But this is nothing new, though. Do you remember that wonderful moment when Liz Hayes walked into a room with a camera crew and got a convicted pedophile? It was good television. They got someone, so it was good for justice. So this is nothing really new. However, I do have a problem with... I don't mind 60 Minutes being there for the arrest. I would really hope that it wasn't like, can you beef it up for us, mate, because we need some ratings. Because I don't think that he should have been arrested like that at all. He was on a beach for goodness sake. And it was way too rough. I have been trying to do research if there's a comment from the police saying exactly why they needed to use that force. There's been no comment. It was way too heavy-handed and ridiculous.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. All right, look, we have been spending a lot of time on hot topics, but there's one story we've got to get to today because millennials and Gen Zers cop a lot of crap for whining and complaining, but this one might be their most bizarre qualm yet. Apparently, they don't like it when people use a full stop in text messages. They're calling it overtly hostile and unnecessary. Let's have a look at these two texts to see if there is a subtle difference in tone. That's funny. That's funny. So, one with a full stop. A study was even conducted at Birmingham University with 126 graduates where it was concluded that texts ending in a full stop seemed insincere, with texting lacking many of the social cues in face-to-face conversations. Robbo, you're pretty passionate about this issue. What are your thoughts?
This is the most stupidest thing I've ever heard. Even when you spoke to me then, and as I'm speaking to you now, there are clear full stops if there was going to be a transcript of this conversation. This is absolutely ridiculous. This
came up in our production meeting the other day when we were talking about it. Didn't Abby say that you guys, like, I was accused of being really harsh in my texts and in my emails?
Yeah, no. Look, one person's harsh is the majority's just way of constructing a sentence correctly. And grammar. This is the most stupidest... You know what's triggering? Triggering is, if you're an alcoholic and you see some alcohol, or if you've been sexually assaulted and you see the person who did it for you, or if you're a drug addict and you see drug. That's triggering. A full stop in a sentence, and let's not forget the full stop has been used for 2,200 years. If you are that sensitive and that precious that if you read those two texts and go, oh, they told me that comment was funny, but they put a full stop on it, so they must be really angry with me. Have these people lived in the real world? Like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Yes, I grant that there are a lot of things to get triggered by in this world, and we need to be more sensitive to a variety of different people's kind of, things that they get upset about, and we need to be more sensitive. A full stop is an absolutely ridiculous thing to get triggered about, and if you do get triggered, piss off.
Ben, you're more in tune with the younger generation than us two. Do you use full stops?
Don't even come and ask me any of this because I am the worst at grammar. I am the worst at spelling. It is not my wheelhouse. If you put a full stop or an exclamation point, the chances are I haven't seen it. I'm dyslexic. I probably wanted to know why the decimal point wasn't at the start of the sentence. Like, I'm not one of those people. Like, look, I'm going to tell you at the age of 40, my best achievement is working out how to spell there and what the difference of those two things are, and what a difference that's made to my friends who, were close to the edge over those text messages when I got the wrong there in the wrong place. Oh, the sadness. The sadness, the madness.
I never knew now that you don't put two spaces after a full stop. So if you're putting full stops in, apparently you only put one space. So I do articles for TV Black Box, and Mulk, who is our Monday TV guy, he said to me, why are you putting two spaces after a full stop? And I went, because that's what you do. And he goes, no, you don't. You haven't done that for 20 years. And I'm like, oh, well, I have been. Jesus, I didn't know the rule. When did the rule change?
Oh, I don't know.
Change,
Communication,
Robbo?
As far as I'm concerned, no.
No. It's always just
Who
been,
would know? Who would?
always just been one space. It's just one space after a full stop.
All right.
So
coming up, Ben has entertainment, and we're going to find out if you loved the Powerpuff Girls. Wait until you see what is in store with a live action version of the cartoon. How are they going to do it? Ben has all the details in entertainment. Plus, Sam Dastyari is cutting through the political BS. But first, it was another huge night on The Masked Singer as Dragonfly was revealed to be none other than absolute Australian icon Sophie Monk. Let's have a look at how it all played out last night. Because she was very good. Sophie is standing by, but we want to show this clip, and we are having problem locating the clip. I've just pointed to it.
Sorry, Sophie.
Not to break the magic, but I've just pointed to it. But I'll tell you what we'll do. I'm going to redo that intro again because we want it
Get to the Sophie.
Yeah, but
Get
we
to
want it
Sophie.
All right. Well, I'm trying to fix it for Abby when she puts it on social media to make the show look professional, Ben. But thank you very much.
Oh. No. You can do whatever you like. I'll sit back here. Full stops, whatever. I'm happy to sit back and yak all the jokes.
It was another huge night on The Masked Singer as Dragonfly was revealed to be none other than absolute Australian icon Sophie Monk. Let's have a look at how it all played out last night.
Don't stop, make it pop, DJ, pull my speakers up. Tonight, I'ma fight till we see the sunlight. Tick tock on the clock, but the party don't stop. No,
Oh, go. We are absolutely thrilled to have her with us today. Sophie Monk, welcome to the Ben, Rob and Robbo show.
Oh, so happy to be here. How are you guys going?
We are very good. You're in quarantine, aren't you?
I definitely am. I feel like I've been in it for about 3,000 years now because obviously I went from Melbourne lockdown to Sydney now in a hotel quarantine,
So you're going back to Sydney. Does that mean the finale of The Masked Singer? We all know it's been in lockdown. Does that mean The Masked Singer is likely to be filmed in Sydney for the finale?
No, they did it before, actually. So, I couldn't see a thing. To be honest, I've got a bag over my head half the time. So, so I didn't know where I was. I was just like, I'll do what you guys say. A bit blind. So,
Now, Sophie, you've been on just about every network. You've been on a lot of shows, Celebrity Apprentice, Love Island, Bachelorette, Australia's Got Talent. You know, I tell you
I
what,
get around.
Oh, you do, but we love you for it. What made you want to tick this show off the list?
I think, well, my best friend Jackie's on it. That helped.
Yeah. Okay.
And I watched her and I thought, it's such a fun show. Like, when do you get to, as an adult, dress up as a weird dragonfly and sing? And, so I was like, and it's not an unkind show or a judgy show. It's just a fun guessing game show. So why not?
Well, the other question I have for you, so I've got a lot of friends that are obsessed with you all the way back to Bardot. And now what do you have to say about some of the other bandmates from Bardot guessing that it was you really early by saying things like, I know those dance moves, or I know that voice. Did you notice all of that commentation?
I did, and a lot of stylists sent me photos of my knees. I didn't realise I've got knock knees. She's like, and I was standing and I went, what are you talking about? I looked down and I went, I do. They're like magnets to each other.
What a
and
bitch.
Jackie was like, didn't you know that? And I went, no. No one's told me I've got knock knees.
Well, Sophie, Ben brought up Bardot, and last night, former bandmate Tiffany Wood Well, she seems very keen on a reunion, and she seems maybe just a little bit bitter. She took to Instagram last night saying, and I quote, "I thought Sophie was too busy for a Bardo reunion. I mean, she's wearing a dragonfly costume, singing on stage while I have to try and get 6 kids to sleep before the show comes on." What would you like to say in response?
I don't know what to say, to be honest. I mean, I haven't spoken to, I've spoken to one of the girls, but the others I haven't spoken to for 18 years. So, I don't want to say anything unkind, to be honest. I think this year's been such, a tough year for everyone. I just wish everyone the best, really. But I
think that's a fair point. But it's okay for you not to want to do a Bardo reunion, by the way.
Appreciate that.
I understand that the former cast, your former bandmates might want a reunion, but it's actually okay to not want to do something, isn't it?
Well, that's right. I think this year anyway, we can't really tour or do anything anyway. So, I actually have been working on a soul because I kind of like a different style of music. So I like more jazz and that kind of, my tone's a lot different now. So I've been working on a different kind of sound completely. But I mean, I try a little bit of everything in the industry, but like I said, I haven't spoken to them. It's like school. I haven't spoken to them for years and years and years and years. So
many people can relate to that, Soph. Like, I think, honestly, we've all been in those environments where, I did a series of Big Brother, and then people always expect that I have this best friendship with all the people that were on that show. And the reality is we're all busy people. It's hard to keep up with everybody. There's no malice. We don't need to get involved in that. And if people decide to take that as malice because you have been quiet, why don't they pick up the phone? Like, why haven't they sent you a text message directly or even asked you how you are?
Yeah, well, I mean, I wish them the best. I think they should do it anyway if they want to do it,
Maybe they could get like a Hispanic person to be so good.
That's right.
We could get a different type of person to fit into that role. I mean, the music's still good and they should enjoy that. But look, I want to ask you something, moving away, changing gears from that, because I'm sure you're sick of being asked about Bardo, but you're a good mate of Jackie O's and it is the show that she's on. How did you manage to keep it a secret from someone when you're as close as you are to Jackie O?
It was so hard because I thought I'd sing one song and get kicked out and be like, surprise! And then I had to keep this lie going for about 6 weeks. And then we got locked down and I was like, the lie just kept growing. You start with a white lie, it turns into a mega lie. So I felt awful. So it was kind of a relief to get my head off to go, sorry.
Well, I would also say it's a strange show because you don't just keep a secret from Jackie O. You're keeping a secret with friends and family. Did you tell your mum and dad?
No, I didn't tell anyone. I actually changed my phone number because I didn't want anyone to ask me because I'm really bad at lying. So I kind of just surprised everyone. Also, it's the fun of the game. If you ruin it for people, people want to guess. I think that's part of it,
How is your mum and dad? Because we saw a lot of them during The Bachelorette and you seem to have a very close relationship with them. How have you been communicating with them during COVID-19?
Well, they're lucky. They're on the Gold Coast, so they're not in lockdown.
As am I.
So, yeah, that's right. Oh, you're so lucky. So,
I wish I was
I'm on the phone all day long anyway. So just nonstop. So quarantine kind of suits my lifestyle, to be honest, because I just like to sit on the phone, talk, and not go anywhere. So, yeah.
Well, the last question I have for you, where everyone in Australia is following your relationship. Now, you're engaged, is that right?
No.
No.
I just keep putting it out there till he's proposing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do you know what? So this is the funny thing for me is I've been engaged to my partner now for 8 years and we haven't got married. And people always just assume we're married. And now when they write about it in the media, they just say we are married. So I think what you need to do is follow my approach and just tell people you're engaged. Then you are.
No, by the time the engagement comes around, everyone will be like, boring. I speak about it.
Well, look, as long as we can both, like Rob and I both want to come to your wedding. Can I just say you were so fantastic on the show. I did pick you right from the start because I'm obsessed with you. So I would have picked you anywhere.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Thank you so much for taking the time for chatting with us today. We're big fans and you did such a great job.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
It's the random life shot of the day. Where are you going today? You'll never know where you'll end up with the random life shot of the day.
And today we're taking you to the skyline of New York City from 235th, New York's largest rooftop bar. It's clear today with a low of 24 degrees and a high of 32. Isn't that cool? And if the camera keeps going, Robbo, you actually get to see the Empire State Building. So as we do some feedback, keep an eye out for that because the camera just
I'm on the
keeps
lookout.
panning. Leo says, usually I join during a fight. I mean, respectful debate. I think he's referring to some of the conversation we had earlier. Patrick says, can they just meet in the middle and extend it for 9 months? Jamie says, are we willing to risk 200,000 lives in Australia to achieve herd immunity? Amanda says, there's been a bit of back and forth on social media about us sharing our opinions. Amanda says, this is stated to be an opinion show. This is what we all tune in for, to hear their opinions. Absolutely, Amanda, that's what we are. If you don't like that, you've got the wrong show. Illy, Uncle Rob, stop yelling at Uncle Ben. I actually didn't think I was yelling. That's the crazy thing with me. But anyway, you get that. Amanda says, I have no issue with him being arrested. Why the crash tackle, though? And I agree with him. Holfer says, it's akin to a dysfunctional family sometimes. And Malcolm says, if you get triggered by a full stop, then start typing in capitals to shout. There you go.
Fair enough.
It caught up to me eventually.
Are we about to see the Empire State? Oh, no, we didn't see it.
Oh, man, can we just go back?
Oh, no.
Is it there?
Sorry, is it? Oh, this is...
Or maybe it's at the other side of the zooming, Robbo.
Oh, damn it. Sorry, I brought that up. Moving on.
No, good chat.
Yeah, no, that was good. Sorry.
Ben, I think, is frozen. All right, it's time to talk politics with our man in the nose, Sam Dastyari. Hello, Sam.
G'day. How are you?
Mate, good. It was a big political story on 60 Minutes this week involving branch stacking, this time within the Liberal Party. Let's take a look at some of the report from 60 Minutes.
Is Marcus Bastian a branch stacker?
I would say yes, but that's only through rumours. These new members openly state that not only are they unwilling to help the Liberal Party in winning elections through volunteering, but some of them have told me that they may not even vote Liberal at the ballot box.
They're fake members?
Yes.
The couple that disclosed to you they weren't perhaps even interested in voting for the Liberal Party despite wanting to become members, they were from the Mormon Church.
That's my understanding, is yes, they were.
Well, during the report, it was claimed Federal Minister Kevin Andrews was in on the scheme.
Is it plausible that Kevin Andrews did not know that he was employing, as parliamentary staffers, people who were in fact factional hacks for Marcus Bastian and Michael Sukkar?
Well, it's not plausible to me. If the person in charge of the office doesn't know what they're doing on what seems to be a pretty organised and time-consuming basis, well, I'd eat my hat.
Sam, the Liberal Party made a lot of noise when 60 Minutes exposed branch stacking within the Victorian Labor Party. How have they reacted to these allegations?
Well, look, firstly, branch stacking is a disease, and it's a disease in Australian politics, and you have it in both sides of politics, and everyone kind of knew that from the start. You're right, about 3 weeks ago, or more like 6 weeks ago now, there was a big expose on 60 Minutes on Labor Party. Obviously, they followed that up with one on the Conservative side. These things normally have a bit of a cycle, right? And it's interesting. Just forget about the incident itself. I'm also fascinated, if you want the deep political analysis, on what goes on straight after.
Yeah.
So straight away, the first rule you try and do in politics is you do a damage assessment, and you say to yourself, what can we get away with? Is this so big that we have to act immediately? So the first thing the Prime Minister does is generally step one is try and make it someone else's problem. So the PM starts off by saying, this is a matter for the Victorian Liberal Party. I've heard people say, it's a matter for the New South Wales Labor Party, or it's a matter for these people, or a matter for that people. So the first thing you try and do when you come into these kinds of scandals is try and limit your own accountability and responsibility, and you try and palm it off somewhere else. The second thing you do when that doesn't work is try and create a process. And that can be I've referred it to police, it's a matter for police, I can't possibly comment. Or in this case, there'll be an independent review by some organisation or another, this time by the Department of Finance, yada yada. Then the third thing that ends up happening, if the stories keep coming out and there's a weight of this, it becomes that was someone on a frolic of their own, that had nothing to do with us, that was terrible, blah, blah, blah. We're not there yet. Then you get to the fourth stage, which is the look, there's a huge problem. It's them. It's not me. It's a disaster down in Victoria, and I'm the one who's going to clean it up. Now, they're the kind of 4 stages you go through. We're kind of at stage 2 at the moment. You can normally see it with every scandal. You saw this in the sports rorts one, for instance, that kind of got to the 3rd stage, step 3, which was the minister getting sacked. I suspect this probably has the likelihood of getting to a 3 out of 4, which is the, I think Kevin Andrews, the old bloke there, long-term Liberal kind of MP, I suspect he'll be told not to run again. But the one who's probably really in trouble is the young assistant treasurer, a guy called Michael Sukkar, who's a kind of up-and-coming right-wing power broker down there in Victoria. He had some
kills
fairly
his power base,
unfriendly-
right? Because he's now tainted.
Yes, it does. It does. But more important than that, these things always have, there's a bit of a flood impact of this. So the doors get opened, right? A couple of stories have come out. There was another, I think, front page of The Age today, or I don't know if it was on the front, certainly front of them online, about, him misusing an allowance to hire another mate for a printing job. Yeah, these things start, and when they start, they normally don't stop. So it'll be... Andrews is old and he's on the way out anyway. He's going to be put to pasture. That branch stacking guy, Marcus Bastian, and their kind of Mormon kind of wing of the Liberal Party they were branch stacking with, that's all done and decimated. All eyes in Canberra are on Michael Sukkar to see whether or not an actual cabinet minister is going to get sunk by this.
So, Sam, you talked about it's kind of cyclic.
Yep.
Yes. Can this ever actually be stopped, and should we even expect that from our politicians?
Look, there is a way of stopping it, but it's not a very popular position. Frankly, the way you stop branch stacking is by opening up the process. The Americans did it. That really means going down to almost a primary style model, which is what obviously the Americans did. That brings itself its own challenges, right? If you have a primary style model, which means that you essentially have an open candidate selection process involving the 2 political parties. The danger is that the political parties lose control, and you will get a Donald Trump or someone every once in a while. But I could argue, even though I'm certainly not a fan of his, he took over the Republican Party. I mean, the RNC convention's on at the moment, and they're only going to have one issue on the platform, and that is, one matter, which is we endorse Donald Trump. So he will take over. You do risk that from a political party control perspective, but so what? I mean, I don't agree with him, but you could argue that Donald Trump was the right candidate for the Republican Party the last election because he won, right? I mean, what other test is there bar that? So I think the solution is a completely open, transparent candidate selection process. I don't think that's an immensely popular position, though.
I would tend to say that there's issues at the moment is that it happens on both sides of politics. And when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about branch stacking. Can voters actually trust our elected officials anymore? I mean, this seems to be the biggest issue. We all think it's great that we have the power to go in and vote for who we want to vote for. But these days, it makes us really wonder whether or not we're voting for the right people.
Yeah, look, I mean, partly about, I think part of the difference is there's obviously has been in the past 10, 20 years a bit more transparency too. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. I think this thing's been going on forever. And you're right, because the stakes are so high. You're talking about federal seats in parliament, you're talking about governments. And the reality is that in the past, 40 years of elections, bar 1 or 2 landslide ones, they've been won or lost by a handful of seats. So in essence, parties picking their candidates in safe electorates has a way bigger determination on who is going to be in Parliament than the community themselves. With the model we have with electorates, with gerrymandering that comes about by redistributions, what it really means is there's only at maximum 20 seats at play in a federal election. So let's say the House of Representatives has 150 people in it. Only 20 will ever change over an election. 130 are really just whoever the parties put up.
Yeah, that's it. And that's why, Sam, we have lost faith in politics, because at the end of the day, we just don't trust them. And this has been, I feel,
losing
the issue
faith.
with COVID.
I don't think lost faith.
No, but Ben, this is why people have not listened to the advice during COVID-19, because, you've got the other side of politics calling Dan Andrews dictator Dan. He just wants more power. There is no cohesive working together during a pandemic. Can't even bring our politicians together. And people have lost so much faith in politicians and their secret agendas that they think there's no COVID-19. You just want want me to control where I go. You want to put a tracking device on my app. You know, like
I think people are losing
wary.
faith. I don't think it's lost. I don't think it's lost.
Sam, do
I
you
think
think
lost
people have
is
faith
gone.
in politicians?
Look, the answer is probably somewhere in between, and to be honest, I agree with Ben a little bit more than you there, Rob.
There's
I
a
think
shock.
faith can be restored fairly quickly, but you're right. I mean, it's very hard for people to feel like the political system themselves kind of represents, and the truth is, it doesn't, and it doesn't. It's not geared towards that. Again, if I'm in a safe electorate, right, and my biggest concern is my own pre-selection, so that means me staying the Labor or Liberal candidate for that seat. I'm going to skew one way or another. I'm going to be more partisan because the people involved in making that decision, I mean, it's just a natural product of the system. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just giving you frank analysis.
Of course.
But people will respond to the kind of pressure. So if my job is to keep 400 ALP branch members happy to retain the membership of a safe Labor electorate, then I'm going to be skewing much more argumentative against the Conservatives, fight them, screw them, this, that. I have less of an incentive for being conciliatory. And that's a real problem. And that's what our political system produces. It produces partisans.
Food for thought, that's for sure. I tell you that much.
Yes, Sam,
Are we all still
we're
here?
having a problem with Rom's mic there, but
Thank you,
can
Sam.
I tell you the other thing?
I was actually saying thank you, Sam, and winding up because I really want to get a quick bit of entertainment. So, sorry, I didn't turn my mic on.
done.
Sam,
I'll
thank
see
you
you
very
next
much, mate. We'll see you next
thanks,
week.
Sam. See you.
Bye-bye.
You're kind of insinuating that he wasn't entertaining. I thought he was rather entertaining. I think he always is. Informative, though. Informative.
Ben, if you could take us through entertainment. Rob's having a problem with his mic
Time for
again.
a quick hit of entertainment. What's happening with Katy Perry and Baby, Ben?
Oh, well, yesterday, Katy Perry, a very heavily Katy Perry, took to Twitter to suggest that she's actually 10 months pregnant, announcing that she's more than ready to give birth to her first child. I'll tell you what, I didn't know that people could go 10 months in their labour, but I do now. The fireworks singer, who is preparing to welcome her firstborn, told fans that 9 months full-term pregnancy seems like more of a myth when it comes to learning about pregnancies that you see in the movies. Look, I don't think that's necessarily true, but I've never been pregnant, so I'm not going to speak on behalf of all the women that have. But I still think it's 9 months. But if she's 10 months pregnant, get that baby out of her is all I can say. But look, I love Katy Perry. I think it's amazing. We've also been waiting for a wedding because she's engaged to Orlando Bloom. Yesterday, she finally came out addressing why she hasn't got married. Check it out.
We have ideas, but like anyone that makes plans in 2020 is just... Oh, it's a little LOL. I mean, we were like, it's there's bigger things going on in the world, and I don't want to say, how sad is it that I had to postpone or cancel or whatever. There's so many other horrible things going on, but what we're hoping for is just a safe, healthy.
And Ben, what's happening with the Powerpuff Girls before we head off?
Well, I know that you love Powerpuff Girls. You basically are one. Actually, I think all three of us are basically Powerpuff Girls. Look, I will say this. This is some fantastic news for comic book and cartoon fans, and that is the Powerpuff Girls are looking like they'll fly again. We did see them as a cartoon when they debuted in 1998, but it would seem that there is an announcement from Variety magazine that a live-action Powerpuff Girls movie is on the way. It's going to be developed by the CW network. I tell you what, my brother was a huge fan of the Powerpuff Girls, and so am I. So look, I think it'll be a really good childhood dream to come true. Hail to the Powerpuff Girls. And I think I'm now being told to wrap up. This is like the Oscars music, right?
Thank you very much, Ben. All right, that brings us to the end of the Ben, Rob and Robbo show. We will see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock as we stream live around the world. We'll see you then. Thanks for your company.
It's the Ben, Rob and Robbo, Ben, Rob and Robbo show.